In the last video in this playlist, I went through and I described how to cut and measure these boards to fit in the form. If you didn't see the video on the cutting and measuring, I'll put a link to that up in the corner of this video up here, and I'll also put a link in the description. In this video, we're going to go to the next step, which is measuring the average width of the river so that you can use that information in calculating the amount of epoxy you'll need to mix up for the board. You can see it's obvious that the channel at the bottom next to the mold is going to be less than the channel at the top, furthest away from the mold. When calculating amounts of epoxy in a rectangular form, the formula is length times width times depth. The amount where the epoxy is going to be is in the channel, so you need to have the length of the channel, the width, and then you need to have the depth. And the best way to get the most accurate calculation for epoxy is to measure the average width. So that's what we're going to go through in this video. One thing you're going to notice when I'm taking the measurements is instead of just taking a top measurement and a bottom measurement, I'm taking 3 measurements, and I keep talking about a 1/4 inch for tabletop and the rest for clear. That's because I was making this board when I was taking those measurements. As you can see, there is a clear coat on the top, which is about 3/4 of an inch thick, and there's a blue layer, which is tabletop epoxy. So this is tabletop, and the other is art epoxy, so that it can get deep. This is somewhere around 1/4 of an inch, and that's what I was using for my calculations because I was trying a new way of pouring things. I wanted to make this look like an actual river, and when this gets all done, you'll see how well it looks, and I'll try to catch this in my series and show you how I polish this and get it so that you can see right through to the river and the rocks. One other thing you'll notice is when you are watching the rest of this video, I'm using a different board that I'm measuring the average width to because I filmed that previously. And I needed to film an intro to make everything tie together clear. Recall that when I introduced this series, I said I would be using different clips from different boards. So don't get thrown off by that. The next one you see will have seal coat on it when I'm measuring it. And I don't normally do it that way. Normally, I would be doing these measurements like this when it's dry. And then I would measure the top or the bottom, and I'd flip it over, and I would do the other side. But in reality, I was anxious when I was doing that board, so I got a little carried away, put seal coat on it. Then I had to do the next best thing, which was to go ahead and measure it with the seal coat dry. Don't get thrown off by that. With that, let's go ahead and start going through the process of measuring the average width. In this case, I've decided I'm going to actually put down a layer between a 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch to begin with. It's going to be a blue. I'm going to try to make it look like a river going through a canyon here. So I'm going to have to take 3 measurements. The first measurement I'm going to need to measure at the bottom of the board. The next measurement I'm going to measure about 1/4 of an inch up, and it doesn't have to be exact. It's got to be close. And then the last measurement I'll measure at the top. So I want to divide the board up into fairly equal increments, and since this is 18 inches, that means I want to divide the board in 6-inch increments to take my measurements. The first thing I'll do is I'll mark off 6 inches. So I got 6, 12, 18, and not that it's that critical. Like I said, it's 6, 12, and 18. And normally I'd flip the boards over, but since I've already got these in here, I'm just going to do the measurements while it's in the form. I'm going to call this the bottom. So I'm consistently measuring, and this is the top. My first measurement I want to take that's down low, and that comes out to 4 inches. Let's see here. I'll put this as top. This is bottom. So this measurement is 4 inches. This next 6 inches down is just slightly under 4 inches, close enough to 4 inches. This next measurement down, again, is 4 inches. It's making life pretty easy so far. 4 inches, 4 inches, 4 inches. And at the bottom, we've got 4.25 inches. So 4.25 inches down here. The next measurements are the top that I'll take, and I'll write those on this side. 6 inches. 6 inches right here. And I'm measuring from where the top of the curve is because I'm planning on pouring it to this high. 6 inches. And this one is 6 and take it right there. 6.5 inches. And this measurement is 6 inches. I've got my top measurements and my bottom measurements. The next measurement that I want to get is about 1/4 inch up for calculating the tabletop epoxy pour I'll do. So I'm putting a 1/4 inch shim here. Normally I would put a long piece, but I couldn't find one. And so I'm going to simply measure that. So this I have at 4 inches. So I'm going to say 1/4 inch is on the bottom here. So this is 4 inches. Measure this about 1/4 inch up. This is 3.75 inches. This is 4 inches. And this is 4.25 inches. So basically the 1/4 inch spot and the bottom are about the same. So the next step is to add all of these together. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16.25. And then divide by 4 to give us our average on the bottom. It's also our average for the 1/4 inch mark. So the 16.25 divided by 4 equals 4.0625. I'll use 4.1 in my calculation. Over here we want 6 inches and 6 inches is 12 inches. 6 inches is 18 inches. And 6.5 inches then is 24.5 inches. And I'm going to divide that by 4. And that equals 6.125. So those will be my numbers that I use in calculating the amount of epoxy. So when I calculate my first amount of epoxy, which will be my tabletop, I'll calculate it at 1/4 inch. And for the average channel width, I'll use 4.1 inches. And for the depth, I'll use 1/4 inch. For the upper calculation of epoxy, which will be a little over 3/4 of an inch, because this is 1 1/16 inch tall. So I'll measure that after I finish putting in the first layer and see what it comes to. I will be using an average channel width of 6.125 plus 4 divided by 2, which comes out to 5.1. Actually, this is 4.1. So close enough, it's 5.1 will be the average channel width for my second pour, which will be the art epoxy. It's my hope that you found the information in this video useful and can use it to go forward and make your own river charcuterie board if that's what you want to do. If you think I deserved it, would you please give this a thumbs up, a like, and if you want to see the rest of this series or other videos I make, please subscribe, hit the all bell, that helps my channel, and until we meet again in this medium, hope you're having some fun and making some sawdust in your shop or whatever it is you like to do. Thank you.